Hello there, my name is Amanda May and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the book addiction tag. I wasn't really tagged to do this video, but it looks like fun, so I want to do it, so I'm gonna do it. I watched Lady Jane Books do this tag and that's how I found out about it, and so I will link her video down below. But let's get into the questions, shall we? Question number 1 is, what is the longest amount of time you can comfortably go without picking up a book? And that really depends. I mean, I've had reading slumps that lasted years where I didn't read any books for fun, really, usually because I was in school and had to read other things, not for fun. But as far as, let's say, 2020 is concerned, where I was reading the most I've read in my entire life, I found it difficult to go like a day without picking up a book. Reading was my pastime of choice for 2020, and so any free time I had, I wanted to be reading. But like, honestly, I can go a day without picking up a book. It's fine, I do it. I just ideally would be reading every day. If I'm looking down here, it's because that's where my laptop is, and some of the questions are long, so I might have to read them off of that. So that's why I might be looking over down in this corner. So question number 2 is, how many books do you carry on your person, physical or on a device, at any one time? And really none. I don't really carry any books around with me. I mostly read at home, so I don't need to carry books around. They're all in my house anyway. And I don't really read on my phone or on a tablet or anything. I don't really read ebooks hardly at all. So I really don't carry books around with me. They all live with me in my house. Question number 3 is, do you keep all of the books that you buy or receive, or are you happy to pass them on to make space for more? And I definitely keep all of my books, especially if I buy them myself. I'm obviously interested in reading them, and I like to own every book that I have read. And I like to have a good number of books that I haven't read just like on hold so that I can pick them up whenever I'm interested. I'm kind of impatient when it comes to waiting for books that I want to read. I don't like waiting for them to be delivered or waiting for a time where I can go to a bookstore and pick them up. So I like to have a decent number of books on hand for that reason. But I have on occasion unhauled books, usually when I either have multiple copies and I don't need multiple copies, or when I've had a book for years and I'm just not interested in reading anymore. Question number 4 is, how long would you spend in a bookshop on a standard visit? I think I average maybe 2 hours. Although to be fair, one of the only places I left my house to go to in 2020 was Barnes & Noble. And I mostly went so that I could get my hands on different editions so that I could pick out which editions I wanted to buy, because I'm really picky about which editions I own, and it's really hard to get that sort of information from a computer. So I would go to the bookstore to see what my options were. And after going to Barnes & Noble a few times, I pretty much knew what was there. I'd pretty much done all the investigating that there is to do. And so my average time spent at a bookshop has decreased throughout the year because there just isn't as much to look at when you've looked at it a bunch of times already. Does that make sense? So it's probably closer to like an hour nowadays. Question number 5 is, how much time a day do you actually spend reading? And that really depends on whether it's a weekday or a weekend. I have a full-time job, and so on weekdays I might spend, as little as 20 minutes reading. But on weekends, I try to spend a few hours reading so that I can sort of make up for the fact that I wasn't able to read a bunch during the week. Question number 6 is, where does the task picking up a book appear on your to-do list? And this is kind of a funny question because I am a list maker. I love making lists, including to-do lists, but I rarely put reading on my to-do list. It's kind of a given, I guess, so it's not something that I feel a need to put on the list, and it's not something that I'm going to beat myself up on if I don't get to it. So nowhere. It doesn't go on my to-do list. Number 7 is, how many books do you reckon you own in total, including ebooks, which I don't really own very many ebooks. But between my husband and I think we own 500 to 600 books. But I've only read 300 and something books. So there's that. Number 8 is approximately how often do you bring up books in a conversation? And I will actively try not to bring up books in conversations because I don't really have very many people in my life that love books as much as I do. And so I try not to annoy them with talking about books all the time. My husband gets it more than anybody, but it is something I have to actively remind myself not to do. Question number 9 is, what is the biggest book by page count that you have finished reading? And that would probably be A Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. I think the edition that I currently have is 1,000 pages, but I actually read the mass market paperback version, which I owned previously, and it was over 1,000 pages long. I'm pretty sure that's the longest book that I have completed to date. Hoping to surpass it in 2021 by reading Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Question number 10 is there a book you had to get your hands on against all odds? And in parentheses it says, searched bookstore, online digging, stalked authors, etc. I definitely haven't stalked any authors, although that's hilarious. But I do have an easy answer for this. While I do scour online for certain editions that I want, there's one book in particular that every time I would go to a bookstore, I would look for this edition. And every time I would be disappointed. And usually I was going to Barnes & Noble, so I didn't really expect to find it. This book would be The Wicked Deep by Shea Earnshaw. So the first printing of this book has a special hardcover under the dust jacket. And I bought it on Amazon thinking that I would get this special hardcover, and when it came, it didn't have it. I'll show it to you in a second. And so I returned the book thinking that it was like a misprint of some sort, and I asked for an exchange, and the second version I got was the same thing. It didn't have the special hardcover. And so I did some research and figured out that it was the first printing that had the special hardcover, and I didn't know how to get my hands on that. I looked for it used online, could not find it for the life of me. Anytime I was in a bookstore, I would look just to see if by chance I would find it, but I was mostly going to Barnes & Noble, and I didn't expect them to have a first printing of a book that came out years ago. I think this came out in 2018. And so it wasn't with much hope that I was looking, but I did my due diligence. And one day, I went to every Barnes & Noble in my city, and I live in a pretty large city, so I have a lot of Barnes & Noble to go to. One day, I went to a Barnes & Noble that I wasn't even planning on going to. I just found myself in the area, and so I went in, and I found The Wicked Deep, and I looked under the dust jacket, and I literally had to do a double take because I was not expecting to find this. So the silver moon and stars is what makes this edition special. And probably if you walk into a bookstore and find The Wicked Deep and take the dust jacket off, you'll still find a book with a moon and stars on the front, but it'll be black against black. It won't be silver. And I really wanted the silver because I think that is just so pretty and so cool. So yeah. This is my answer. Pretty much all of the other special editions that I searched for, they were just online purchases that I put in my Christmas wish list and my friends and family bought for me, so that's less exciting. Number 11 is there a book you struggled to finish because you refused to DNF? Yes. Follow Me to Ground by Sue Rainsford. I've mentioned this multiple times on my channel. It's an odd book. It's heavy in body horror and it's light in character development and plot. And I struggled through all 200 pages of it. Thankfully, it's not a short book, but I refused to DNF it. I wanted to give it its full chance. I'm not good at DNFing. I need to get better at that. But I didn't DNF. I finished this. and it was a struggle the entire way through. Question number 12 is, what is 3 or some of your main book goals for 2021? I guess one of my main book goals is just the number of books that I want to read. I set my Goodreads reading challenge goal at 50 books because I wanted to be conservative, because hopefully COVID won't be so much of a thing in 2021. Hopefully life will become a little bit more normal, which unfortunately will mean less time for reading. That was one of the benefits of 2020, was that I had more time to read. So I didn't want to be too ambitious with my goal, but there are definitely more than 50 books on my 2021 TBR. But I figured like a book a week was a decent pace to set for myself, and I also figured that life was going to happen and I wouldn't necessarily be able to finish a book every week, especially because I want to read some really long books in 2021. So I went from my like 52 count of a book a week and just knocked it down a little bit to an even 50. I am really hoping that I can read more than that, but we'll see. Another main goal would be, there are a bunch of authors that I discovered in 2020 that I would like to read more from, and I'll have a video coming up soon, if it's not already up actually, that has a list of all of the books, series, and authors that I really want to get to in 2021. I'm supposed to have 3 goals, aren't I? It says some in parentheses, so I might just leave it at that. Question number 13 is, have you had the privilege of converting someone into a reader? And in parentheses, by inspiration or your incessant nagging? I don't really think so. My husband wasn't a huge reader growing up, but he did read. I mean, he introduced me to some of my favorite fantasy series. But usually I will turn him on to certain fantasy series that I really like, and I like nudge him to read it because I want to geek out with him and want him to read the books that I love. And I'll do the same thing with one of my really good friends who also reads. But other than that, I really don't. I honestly really don't talk about books with people who are in my life physically. So unfortunately, no. And the last question, question number 14, is to describe what books mean to you in what, five words. I don't know if that's supposed to be like a five-word sentence or just 5 separate words. I'm gonna go with 5 separate words because that's what Lady Jane Books did. And I'm gonna have to think about it. Why is this hard? Happiness? So this is really hard, and probably when I stop recording this video, I'm gonna think of a bunch of words that I should have used besides these 5, but this is what we're gonna go with. Escape, relaxation, learning, and I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna say experiences / adventure because those are kind of the same thing. I just wanna elaborate from experiences to like include adventure, because obviously I read fantasy, it's almost entirely adventure books. Anyway, and lastly, number 5, empathy, because I think that reading books has allowed me to become a more empathetic person and a person who better understands different walks of life. And as I think I said in my booktube newbie tag, one of my favorite things about reading is being able to build up empathy or sympathy, however you want to look at it, for people who go through hard things. So yeah, those are my 5. I'll probably change my mind in just a few minutes when I stop recording, but we're gonna go with it. And that's it, that's all of the questions. There actually isn't a question telling me to tag anybody, but if there was, I would say I'd tag everybody because I like to be inclusive, I don't know. So if you feel like doing this tag, you have my permission, feel free, have fun. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would please subscribe, that would really help me, I'd really appreciate it. And please leave a comment down below answering any of these questions that you feel like answering, especially the last one. What do books mean to you in 5 words? I would love to hear your response to that because it was really hard for me to come up with my 5 words. In any case, I will see you in the next video. Bye!